Hi everybody, I wanted to give you a little copper foiling at home demo so that you can have a reference for all your copper foiling needs during the class. And we've got one little test piece here that I picked out for you because it has an interior curve here that's concave. So I'll be showing you how we do the little pleating method to smoothly go through curves like these. And I've got all my tools and necessities here, my rubbing alcohol that I like to keep in a spray bottle, and a little piece of paper towel. You can use rags too, something like a jersey rag I actually really like to clean stuff with. Just some scissors to cut the foil with. You can rip it with your fingernails, but it wears and tears after a little while, so scissors handy. My favorite burnishing tools. We all know how much I love my Sharpie for burnishing. I'll show you why. And sometimes I just use another pin, or this is a chopstick. Whatever you have handy that is smooth, it can't have any seams or rough edges, and it's better if it's just a little bit pliable, just a tiny bit of give. You don't want something truly hard, like a piece of metal to burnish with. It'll rip your foil. And we've got our foil here. I'm using a thinner foil than what is in your kit per what I'm working on, because when you use very, very tiny pieces of glass, you can go with thinner foil so that you don't cover up your detail. So that's what I have here. This is actually a 3/16 inch foil, so that's on the very skinny and use sparingly side. Okay, so first, a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And I like rubbing alcohol more than anything that is a glass cleaning product like Windex, because it is just a pure product that evaporates very, very quickly, and it gets any of the grease from your fingers off without leaving anything behind chemical-wise that would be in another mixture with colors and perfumes. So the more pure, the better. It doesn't mess with your adhesive from the copper foil or your soldering. Get all of your marker off. Permanent marker dissolves easily with just straight rubbing alcohol. And we want to make sure we're removing any of the frit, that powdery frit that we have from grinding. You definitely want to get every last particle of that off that you can, because it will kind of undermine the sticky factor of your copper foil adhesive. Okay. Make sure your hands are clean and dry as well. Your fingertips, you want to make sure you don't have lotions or just natural greases on. So wash your hands prior to starting this application, or you'll just add back that grease we wiped off. Okay, so I like to start my copper foil strip a little bit, just give myself a couple inches to work with. Now, I usually start at a tip of some kind, something that's going to give me a pivot point to hold on to and kind of seize with my foil. So let's see, let's start on this end. I'm going to pop that over that tip just a little ways. Make sure you're getting your foil perfectly centered. Check left and right. Give it a good hard press to get that attached so that you can give it a little pull. And I like to hold that tip so that I can pull out my foil nice and straight. And then with my pointer finger, I usually use to lead it into all of my crevices. So keep checking both sides to make sure you're getting it nice and even. Get to those little dips, run your finger up into those dips. You don't want to pull so tight that you skip over them and then have to press in, because you won't have enough foil. You need to make sure that even on these little shallow guys, it has plenty of foil to burnish down and into those curves without splitting. Because if you pull your foil too tight and try to stretch it over a large area, it will split on you. And then you can put in little pieces of foil to cover those splits, but they are problematic, so you want to do that as little as humanly possible. There are always exceptions, but we will try and show you how to avoid needing to have patches by avoiding splits entirely. So this curve, this is a shallow enough curve that if you burnish your foil really well and get it almost warmed up with the action of burnishing, that it would stretch into that curve most likely without splitting, but that's not a given. And so, especially on anything deeper than this, you want to put in just a little excess foil. So we do a pleat of foil. And to do that, we sort of crush together a teepee that we will build into this curve. It takes some getting used to, and it is a little bit tricky at first, but it doesn't add that much time or difficulty, and it will prevent splitting in your curves. So I'm pressing that down. You can see I just have a tiny amount of excess there. So it's just this little itty bitty TP sticking up in the curve. And when we press that down, we want to go straight down, trying, you know, not to necessarily flop it to one side or the other. More like straight smushed down. Just kind of collapses on itself. And we'll leave that right there for right now. Keep going. Keep in mind that you don't need to do that very often. Just look critically at your pattern pieces before you foil and decide what areas might need that attention. There should not be very many until you begin building things that are very intricate, and give yourself a whole lot of fussy bumps to contend with, like here. Finish off our foiling. Make sure that split is even. Remember, you can always pull it off and replace your foil if you need to, but try not to touch the sticky adhesive with your fingertips too much, or you'll lose that nice sticky quality. Okay, we've reached our overlap, so hopefully you can see that I have just about, this is close to a 1/4 inch of overlap, and I don't need that much because I'm not going to double up that much down into the corner. So I'm going to peel it back and trim it where I only have about an 1/8 inch overlap. Okay, lay those right down on each other. All right, so can you see here, I can tell that my overlap isn't quite even. So rather than having to shave that back with a razor blade, which you can do, but just reposition just a smidge, just a little bit, until you can tell that your origin has lined up with your end piece. Okay, so I haven't pressed down the edges yet, leaving those out. I'm going to use my Sharpie because it will fit lovely in these curves here, just like a vegetable peeler, sort of. Get in that outside edge and all those curves and bumps until you start to see that nice shiny finish. And you can sort of capsize these edges a little as you go. Not trying to pinch them down, but just folding them a bit. Now see how fast and hard I'm burnishing here. I'm trying to build up a little bit of heat, and that heat is going to help me in the places where I have not built in any kind of extra TP of foil and pleated an extra space in there. That heat will help that foil and adhesive make a nice clean stretch without splitting. So just adding a little bit of friction really helps there. Now here in your corners, this is where you want to fold one side under another. And really, it doesn't matter a great deal which side you choose. You just want to fold one side. So I use my fingernail, come right in there, and fold one side down, just like that. Do the same on this side. When you're coming up to these edges, you just want to give it a little direction, because if you just smash into them and let it fold willy-nilly, if you will, they can sometimes flip backwards where you end up with a little bit of adhesive facing up, which is a pain when you go to solder. Okay. Inside that curve. Now here we've got our nice little pleat. Knock that down. And as we knock it down, this is a little bit tighter. So instead of just using this, I can actually use even this edge of the Sharpie or something a bit smaller like my chopstick here. And I'm building up that heat, and then I'm going to just kind of fold it. Just the quick action, not just to build up heat, but just to help you smooth it evenly. It's like sketching with a pencil. You just want a little bit of speed there to help you make a smoother line. Okay, now there's also plenty of other burnishing tools out there. Some of you have seen the rolling tool where it's a little bit of a rubberized plastic roller ball on a roller wheel on a stick. And those are made for burnishing as well. And to each their own. I always say if you have a tool you're in love with and it really works and does the job you need it to do, go for it. But I have always found I have greater satisfaction just with good old hand tools. So what I'm doing right now, burnishing, I'm holding it in the air, but it really is actually easier once you have your sides folded down pretty nicely. You can lay it on a flat surface and switch back to my Sharpie here, and I can burnish the whole thing and put a lot of extra pressure on it if it's laying on a table. So do be sure, if you have glass, some of this art glass is wonderful, but it can be a little bit on the wavy side. So, you know, this is a really straight, flat piece. Now, some glass that has a little bit of a height difference in texture can give you a roll, and if you set that down and it's not a perfectly flat piece and you put a ton of pressure on it, you can snap it. So just be aware. Shouldn't be a frequent problem, but it does happen, even to me. Okay, there we go. That's our copper foiled piece, burnished and ready for soldering. Pop that down on your pattern and move to the next. I will see you very soon.